Remember the flack the Harper Conservatives received from Justin Trudeau regarding the language used in Canada's Citizenship Guide 5 years ago? Specifically, that phrase condemning barbarism. You may recall the guide condemned, quote, those cultural practices that tolerate spousal abuse, honor killings, female genital mutilation, forced marriage, or other gender-based violence, end quote. Justin and his ilk had a conniption that anyone would have the temerity to use the word barbarism to describe, well, barbarism. I was thinking of this embarrassing kerfuffle when I came across a disturbing story out of Edmonton. It's a tale that confirms the Conservatives were bang on with the language used in the Citizenship Guide. Here's the skinny. An Edmonton man, Adel Moradi, originally from Iran, was recently ordered to take anger management courses following what was described as a nasty physical attack on his wife's boss, Ross Undershoot. Gracious, what did Mrs. Moradi's boss do to her that led to a physical assault by Mr. Moradi? Well, if you can believe it, folks, the boss had the temerity to walk up to Mrs. Moradi at a shopping mall last October and say, hello. And why wouldn't he greet her? They're co-workers after all. There was no suggestive language or gestures, no double entendres here, just a friendly greeting in a mall. Well, that didn't go over well with Mr. Moradi. A week later, Mr. Moradi went with his wife to the office where she worked and spoke to the HR department about the mall incident, aka that innocuous greeting. Now, the court heard that Mr. Moradi eventually spoke to Mr. Undershoot as well and stated the following, quote, no men are allowed to speak to my wife and she can't speak to any men, end quote. Well, after Undershoot explained that wouldn't be possible, Mr. Moradi became irate and refused to leave the office after being asked to do so. He tried to kick Undershoot and he wasn't successful in that, but he was successful in clawing, scratching, and spitting on Undershoot's face. Defense lawyer Rob Shayak, however, employed the good old cultural sensitivity argument, noting that Mr. Moradi based his vulgar stance on his upbringing. He had been offended by his wife's boss approaching her in public and gasp, speaking to the woman without first introducing himself to Mr. Moradi. Judge Kirk McDonald noted the assault had disturbing undertones. The judge told Mr. Moradi, quote, you are now in Canada. We do not place restrictions on the way that women live here, unlike in some other countries, end quote. Gosh, hopefully the judge himself won't be hauled in front of a Human Rights Commission for uttering such culturally insensitive remarks. But I think Mr. Moradi got off easy thanks to the culture class argument. He was told that while on probation, he must take an anger management course and perform 50 hours of community service. Let's be clear here. He assaulted someone for a completely nonsensical reason. If it were up to me, I would have thrown the book at this thug. In the final analysis, Mr. Moradi's bizarre no-talking rule boggles the mind. If Undershoot cannot speak to Mrs. Moradi, then how can the two co-workers even communicate? You know, it brings to mind Control's secret word file from a vintage Get Smart episode. This nonverbal communication method was meant for top secret discussions when the cone of silence wasn't working, but perhaps we can use the secret word file in Canada in order not to offend anyone's cultural sensibilities when it comes to discussions between unrelated members of the opposite sex. Check it out. Welcome to Justin Trudeau's Canada, folks. Hope you're digging it. For the Rebel Media, I'm David the Menzoid Menzies.
Thanks for watching. Click here to never miss a Rebel update. Want even more of the Rebel? Well, click here to become a premium member.